Hello friends, so welcome to this lecture on Azure Firewall. So in this lecture along with the Azure Firewall demo, we'll also try to understand how the user-defined route works and how we can add a custom rule using the route table and virtual appliance, and we'll see the concept of UDR, user-defined routing. So we'll cover two, three things in this particular lecture. So we'll cover virtual appliance concept, we'll cover UDR concept, and we'll see how we can create a Azure firewall and filter the traffic with the help of Azure Firewall. So if you'll see, we are going to use almost this kind of setup was given by the Microsoft to test this particular uh, scenario or Azure Firewall. So you can see in the particular VNet, single VNet, they have given the name this, but we already have created one VNet SA-VNet1, which we are using. And in that VNet, we have created three subnets, like one is jump server subnet. So uh, we have subnet 2 for this server jump, and then work subnet is subnet 1, and then there is a third subnet in which we have deployed the firewall, and this subnet we have named as Azure Firewall subnet. So remember subnet 1 and subnet 2. Subnet 1 is our work subnet and subnet 2 is the jump server. So what we will do is we'll try to connect to our virtual machine 2 SAVM2, which we have already provisioned, which is in the subnet 2 basically. And then once we are able to connect the machine, we'll take RDP through the private IP for this particular VM1, and from that VM we'll try to see that okay, whether we are able to search for the traffic which we have allowed or which we have denied, because that traffic will try to forward through the firewall, and then we create the rules within the firewall. Pretty simple setup. First step, we'll log into this machine, and from this machine we'll take the RDP for this machine. And now since this machine will forward all the traffic to go to the internet via this firewall, so we'll create the rules in this firewall and we'll see whether the this machine traffic is processed by this particular firewall or not. So we'll perform this with the different steps. So we'll create a VM in each subnet, VM subnet 1 and subnet 2. So I have already, just to save the time, I have already created two VMs. So VM1 in subnet 1 and VM2 in subnet 2. And then we create a Azure firewall in the Azure firewall subnet. So we'll do this step first, and then we create a, so let's do the first step is create a Azure firewall in Azure Firewall subnet, because I have already created two VMs. So I'll show you that okay, the two VMs which I have created. So let me click on this. If you'll see, these are already SA-VM1, which is in subnet 1, and SAVM2, which is in subnet 2. So we'll log into this particular machine and then take the RDP of this particular machine as discussed. So let's try to create first a firewall. So we'll type in Azure Firewall over here. Okay, and this is the firewall. So we'll create a new firewall, create firewall, and we'll use the same SA-resource group, and name will give SA firewall 1, and region will be US East only, and choose a virtual network which we have already created. We have already created a virtual network SA-VNet1, and this is asking us to choose the public IP address. So we'll assign a SA hyphen firewall, you can say public IP address, and it will assign us an public IP address. So let's suppose in this we have mentioned that okay, create Azure firewall in Azure firewall subnet. So let's suppose if I would not have already created the Azure firewall subnet, it would give the error basically. So make sure that okay, you have already created the Azure firewall subnet, or the third subnet which I have created. So we'll click on review and create, and then it will take some time to provision this particular firewall. It generally take 4 to 5 minutes to prepare the create the firewall. Now what we'll do is, as per our second step, what we have to do is, till the point this deployment is going on, So the second step we have is that we need to create a route table and rules within that route table. So let's do that. So we'll go to Azure portal and we'll type, let's say, route table. Okay, and then once route table is there, we'll create a, so we have already created a route table, we can use the same. Okay, so let me do one thing. Let me delete this particular route table and provision a new route table for you. And then we'll create the SA hyphen route table for route table, you can say 2 will create, and then free trial same, we'll use the this particular subscription, then US East, and then we'll create a route table. So it is validating the information. It will take again 10 to 15 seconds to create this particular route table. Okay, now till this is route table is being created, we can check that okay whether we are able to log into our virtual machines or not, or which are the steps which are pending. So till this point of time we have done three things. This VM2 VMs we have already provisioned in subnet 1 and subnet 2. Azure firewall we have just created, it is getting processed, and this we have create a route table. So once it is created, we create a rule. The next step we need to do is attach that particular route table to a subnet. So we'll attach this particular route table to this particular subnet. Okay, you mean subnet 1, so that it can forward the traffic to the firewall. So let's see if our route table has been created or not. So it should have been created by this time. Let's see. Okay, route table has been created. We'll go to that particular resource. You see, the route table has been created. So what we'll do is we'll create a route within this. So we'll say uh, route for subnet 1. Okay, and we'll say, let's say any traffic which will go from this particular, okay, for this route should go through the virtual network appliance. So what we are doing when we are adding route is we are defining a custom route, which we also call it as user defined route. So user defined route concept we have already discussed, because as per our requirement we are trying to route the traffic to the next hop. So we'll mention the virtual appliance, and here we need to mention the private IP address of your virtual uh, for your firewall basically. So I think we need to wait for some time. Let's see if it is getting provisioned or not. Okay, so the deployment is still in progress. It will take maybe 1 or 2 minutes. I'll pause this video over here, and once it is deployed, I'll come back again. So now our resource has been provisioned. We'll go to this particular resource. Basically, our firewall has been created, and we'll copy this particular IP address so that, remember, we were creating this particular routes in the route table. So I'll go to route table and we'll click out over here, and we were creating the routes, or we were adding the user defined routes. So let me write it down, route table for subnet 1. Okay, so this is what we were doing, and then for any traffic it should use the next hop as the virtual appliance, and virtual appliance is basically the firewall which we have mentioned, and this is the IP address we have mentioned. Is there any? Okay, and we'll click on OK, and a new route will be added. So the IP address we have used is for uh, the Azure firewall which we have created, because we want that okay all the traffic for the subnet should go to this particular firewall. So you'll see a custom route will be added over here. Okay, let me go over here. So you can see we have added the route. Now what we need to do is now we need to attach this particular route table to a subnet 1. If you remember, we want to forward this traffic from subnet 1 to this. So in that case, we'll the route table which we have created, we need to attach it to subnet 1. So we'll attach it to subnet 1 and associate. We'll select the virtual network and then we'll select the subnet 1. All right, now this is what we have done, and now what we need to do is we'll check our virtual machines. Now we'll go to our virtual machines, the two virtual machines we have created. Remember, this is subnet 2 and this is subnet 1. From this particular machine, we'll take the RDP of this machine. So we'll see what is the public IP address of this particular machine, and I'll take the RDP. So we'll add PC. Okay, we'll add the IP address and then we'll try to see if we are able to log in or not. Okay, so the username is SAVM2 and the password is okay, and then we'll continue. We'll see if we are able to log in. Yeah, we are able to log in, and we should get the console of that particular machine. Here you go. So now we are logged into our virtual machine 1. From here, we'll try to take the RDP of virtual machine 1. So let's see what is the IP address of our virtual machine 1. And if I'll go to virtual machines and VM1, what is the IP address? 10.0.1.4. Okay, so we'll do one thing. We'll take the RDP from here. Okay, so we'll take the RDP and here we have the IP and then we enter the password and we'll be able to see that whether we are okay. So now we are able to log into virtual machine 1. Now this is the RDP we have taken. Now what we need to do is we have done the setup right now, all the setup which is required. Now what we need to do is the firewall which we have created, we need to create a routes in that particular firewall or rules in that firewall so that we can filter the traffic. So this firewall we have created SA-firewall 1. So we'll create the rules within this firewall. Let me go to the application rule group. You can add application rule collection. Okay, and let's say mentioned allow Google. Okay, allow Google will assign priority 100 and we can allow or deny the traffic. FQDN you can mention Google we are allowing, and then the source IP address we are mentioning it for the our one subnet. Okay, subnet 1. So /24 any source we can mention HTTP and HTTPS, and then we can mention the that www.google.com is allowed. So this is the rule we have added and we'll add that particular rule. Now this rule will reflect over here. Now see what we have done. This is the setup we have done that okay, for this particular subnet we have routed the traffic to this particular firewall, and within this firewall we have allowed the Google. Now we'll see that okay, we have allowed Google for VM1 which is there in subnet 1, whether we are able to access it or not. See, try to google.com from VM1. So we'll try that step right now and see it is updating the firewall rule. So it will take again few seconds to update the rule. So once the rule is updated, let's see we are able to see the denial rule or not. See, our rule has been updated. Now we'll try to open the google.com from that particular. So I'll try to refresh it. You can see HTTP request from this 10.0.1.4, which is our VM1 IP address to google.com, action deny. So see, in this case, what we have done is setup which we have discussed in the first place. Let me go back to this, and we have created this subnet, three subnets we created, subnet 1, subnet 2, and then subnet 3. And all this traffic we have routed via the firewall by creating a user defined route which we have attached to subnet 1. And for subnet this is the next hop, which is the virtual appliance, we can say, and it forwards the traffic and passes through the internet. So we tried by accessing and blocking the google.com. So this is it, friends, in this lecture. Hope you have liked the lecture, and thank you for watching this lecture. Meet you in the next lecture. Thank you.